So what does it mean to be a friend? Everybody in the world wants to have a friend. It's something we struggle with. I'm not talking about an acquaintance. You say hello, goodbye, Baruch Hashem. Somebody who you're really friends with. So last week's parsha, everybody knows, Vayichu shnei bnei Yaakov, Shimon v'Levi achei Dino. Shimon and Levi, the brothers of Dinah, took their swords. They went to Shechem. They destroyed the place. And Rashi says, why are they called achei Dino? We know they're achei Dino. And the answer is, Lefisha Masru Aleo, because they sacrificed themselves for their sister, they're called brothers. So if we would want to make a cheshbon of what is it called to be a friend, first thing is, I need to be ready to sacrifice myself for somebody else. That's the first rule in friendship. But you know, when you want to take the parsha along with you, and you want the parsha to teach you stories about your life, so we go into next week's parsha, and there's one of the most amazing Torahs ever about friendship and what it means to be a friend. There's only one time in the Torah that the Torah says somebody was a friend. You know that? He was called Chira Ha'adulami. The only time the Torah says Chira Adulami was a friend. Isha Adulami, Reo Adulami, his friend from the Adulami. What was the story of this friend? Listen deep, my friends. I heard the story from a lot of different sources. It's an unbelievable Torah. Vayishlach Yehuda as Gedio Izim B'yad Re'eyu Adulami. After Yehuda had the story with Tamar, very embarrassing story, he gives the Gedio Izim, he gives these goats that were supposed to be the payment for Tamar in the hands of his friend Ha'adulami. Lokachas ha'eiravoin miyado isha v'loi motzo. Vayishalas anshe mekoyma lemer aya kedeshu hi ve'inoyim al adarech. Isha Adulami, Chira, went around with this eiravoin, with the payment. Could you imagine what happened? Yehuda had to be able to confide in his friend. He had to go over to his friend Chira and he had to say, Chira, you know, yesterday something happened. I got to pay. I can't go myself. I don't know who she is. I need you to go take, please, this Eiravon and go find her to pay. So, you know, maybe if we would be her Yehuda's friend, we would say, just scratch it. Why are you running after her to pay? What are you, nuts? She doesn't know, you just move on. But Yehuda said, no, I need to pay. Pay for what? Pay for... And Chira Adulami went and he takes this Eiravan and he goes around in the streets and he can't find her. V'loi matzah. Vayishal es anshe mekoyim oleimod. He goes around asking everybody and he says, hey, sir, excuse me, sir. Aya kedeshu hi beinoyim. And he can't find her. So you can imagine this took a whole day. V'loi matzah. He couldn't find her. He looked all over for her. He couldn't find her. And the Torah says that Chira is Re'eyu Adulami. The only time the Torah testifies that somebody was a friend. So, you know, last week we spoke about being a friend means to sacrifice yourself. Levi Yehuda sacrificed themselves. But here we get a little more details. What are you ready to sacrifice? You know, it's one thing to go take a sword and to go kill out an entire city because you're righteously and, you know, you're like, it's kanois. You're achim. You're brothers. But what does it take to go around that everyone should think that you're the guy who has to go pay with walking around with his head over and looking for Aya Kadesh Beinaim, and everybody thinks that you're the guy who has to pay? Probably wasn't too, not something that brought a lot of cover. You know, all the Chassidic masters said a Gewalt Torah. When it comes to Ish, the Torah says a few times that a Malach is called a Ish. The Torah from Moshe Leib Sasavet. When Yosef HaTzadik is looking for his brothers, it says Vayimtze'eu Ish. He found this Ish, he found this person, and he asked him, Vayimtze'eu Ish v'nei basoda. And he asked him, Ma tevakesh? Rashi says, who is this Ish? Vayimtze'eu Ish. Malach Gabriel. But when it says, Vayovek ish imoi by Yaakov, who is that ish? Sore shel Esav. The Chassidic masters asked, how do you know when ish? When is ish called Sore shel Esav? When is ish called Gabriel? So the masters, when you ask somebody, Tivarcheni, you ask somebody, bless me, and he says, I'm sorry, Shalcheni ki Allah ashachar, I have to go daven now, I don't have time. You know that it's Sore shel Esav. But when it's Vayimtzeu ish v'nei soya basada, and he asks you, Ma tevakesh, what can I do for you? Then you know that he's Malach Gabriel. The Torah tells you tremendous truths that's negay for me and you. You know, I remember once I was once going fundraising, and I was in shul, and as I was going from table to table, I came closer to this guy, and he saw me coming, so he started saying Kriya Shema. And I told him, I said, don't use don't use religion to get away from God. Kriya Shema wasn't intended to get away from God. Don't use the Shalcheni ki Allah ashachar. You don't have to give me, but that's not the way how to get out of stuff. So that's another nakud of a friendship. But I want to go to a next level, a much deeper level, from a story I heard this week. It's an unbelievable story. I heard the story from Matchadav Geltzeler. He was speaking in shul this week. And he said his uncle, Daniel Geltzeler, was once, had one of his contacts, one of his friends. And the guy called him up and he said, look, I need from you a favor. Our father was nifter. And he left over Yerusha. And my brother is fighting with me. He says, I'm a ganev, and it's like turning complicated. He's saying that I'm stealing the Yerusha. And Baruch Hashem, I have enough money. It's more important for me to keep the peace in the family than whatever money it is. I have Baruch Hashem panos, I don't need the money. I'm ready to be mavater on every penny, just that there should be peace in the family. But my brother doesn't want to talk to me. So I'm asking you if you can do me this favor and you can call up my brother and you could be mafasha and you can work things out. So he calls up this brother, and as soon as he gets on the phone, the brother says, oh, you're calling me about the brothers, and he says, let me just talk to you, let me come down. So he goes down to the seat, and he begins talking to him. And he says, I don't know what you're getting so agitated about. I spoke to your brother. He said he's ready to be mavater on every penny. He's going to give you the whole Yerusha. He's ready to give everything away. Why are you upset? He says, yeah, but, years ago, this is going on for years already. He takes advantage of me and he's a gunner. And he says, he said, there's something more to the story. And finally, he went deeper and deeper and he dug more and more. And listen to the story that came out. Mamish touched my neshama, the story. He said, 50 years ago, or 40 years ago, I was a little kid. I was 10, 11 years old. And it was Erev Pesach in the morning. We're living in Williamsburg in one of these huge projects. And we had the 10 bereklich. We had the chametz that we had to burn. Erev Pesach. How do you burn chametz back in those days? We went down to the basement and there was an incinerator, a furnace. So you opened up the incinerator and you threw in the crumbs and that's how you burnt your chametz. So we go downstairs, my father, me and my brother. And we're standing in front of that incinerator and he opens up this door. And he didn't realize that the flame was burning. And when he opened up the door, the flames shot out and it engulfed him, engulfed them. And in that moment, my father yelled, Herschel! Ratavadech! Herschel, save yourself! And then the flame went back in. And in his mind it registered that my father loves my brother more than me. And for years, this is knowing in that my father loved my brother more than me. And that's why, and he doesn't really love me, he's my younger brother. And I don't know the people, I don't know the story, I don't even know if I'm telling exactly all the details the way the story happened. But you can probably think to yourself that, hey, if the brother was a younger brother, that's probably why he yelled, go save yourself. We don't know what the father meant. But what we do know is that in his mind it registered that my father loves my brother more than me. And this is sitting with him for years, 40, 50 years. He's living with this simchas. There's all these shtechs going on. There's all this underlying tension that's going on. Why? Because he wasn't taught that he can communicate and he can express his feelings and he can get it out of his system. He just didn't know how. You know how sad it is that it takes until you're 60 to be able to get this out into the open and say, let me tell you what's really going on? It's a terrible story, this. And if you're going through all the parshas, it's going throughout the parshas and the Torah, this story. It's a terrible story. It's a story of Yosef. It's a story of Yosef having chalomas. It's misinterpretation. It's the brothers being jealous, but they can't express their jealousy. So because they can't express it, they do all type of stuff. Like you start selling people, you start getting rid of them. It's learning how to communicate and how to be open and how to be vulnerable. That's really what counts. So a gewalt chiddush came down this week. A moeilijk chiddush. Yosef goes through therapy, very difficult therapy. He's wearing the ksoinas pasel. He's the beloved child. He's also the loved child who's causing the other brothers to feel hated. He also doesn't know how to communicate because he's maybe the boss amara lavia. He's framing things in a negative way. He ends up getting sold. He ends up going into Beis Potiphar. He suddenly starts having to struggle what common people have to struggle with. There's situations going on. He ends up getting thrown into prison. You know what happened when he gets thrown into prison? You know what happens when he gets thrown into prison? Suddenly, he sees there two people. And he sees the Sarah Mashkim and the Sarah Oifim. And he says, Vayar Oisam Vihinom Zoyafim. He sees them and he sees their faces are sad. It's the first time in the Torah that you see someone had an emotion. Zoyafim. He sees that they're sad. And he asks them, Madua Paneichem Roim Ayoim. Why is your face sad today? Yosef HaTzadik is this exalted, holy person. And he's in prison with lowly, nobodies. And he's tuned in. He went through tremendous pain in his life until he learned how to tune in. And he says, Lama Panecha Roim. Why is your face bad? He said, don't carry grudges for the next 50 years. Something's going on. Tell it to me. Tell me about it. Let's speak it out. So I had a gewalt kasha. And I want to ask you this question too. The question was, Mele the Sarah Mashkem, the interpretation of the dream of the Sarah Mashkem, that's gewalt. He's telling him, you're going to have a good life. You're going to get out of this prison. You're going to be back in your position. You have a future. You have something waiting for you. But the Sarah Oifim, he tells him, you're going to die in 3 days. So what did he accomplish by telling him the interpretation? This guy's ponim is Zoyafim. He's sad. And now that he told him you're going to die in 3 days, now it's going to be better? It's probably going to be much worse. He knows he's going to die in 3 days. And the secret is that it's better to get clarity and to get closure and to have a clear knowledge of what's going on and to know I'm going to die in 3 days than to walk around not knowing about a murky dream that's uninterpretable, that has so many different ways of seeing it, and I don't know, and I'm having nightmares, and you're going to die anyway. Could you imagine if you would know 3 days before you die that you're going to die? That'd be amazing. It would be like this gewalt story. I once read the story, unbelievable story about this guy, about tshuva. And the story was that one night he had a dream. And the dream was, in his dream, he dreamt that he was driving home from work. And he gets a call. It's the doctor on the other line. And the doctor says, I got back the results from your test. You have 1 hour left to live. 1 hour. And he puts down the phone. And he's in traffic. And he's sweating buckets. What do I do now the last hour of my life? What am I going to do with the last hour of my life? I'm going to be dying now. And his mind is racing. What do I do? Who should I do now? What am I supposed to do? I'm in traffic. What do I do now? The last hour of my life. And as the time is going on, the minutes are ticking. He's seeing that it's only 47 minutes left. But he doesn't know what to do. What do I do? It's only 47 left in my life. What do I do with the last 47 minutes of my life? And he's getting frantic, and he's becoming anxious. And it's only 32 minutes left. And then it's only 22 minutes, and he's in traffic, and he doesn't know what to do. And he's trying to call his wife, and his phone isn't working, and he doesn't know, what am I supposed to do now? I'm stuck in traffic. This is the worst way to die. It goes down to 7 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he wakes up. So he wakes up, and he's screaming koilus. He's not religious. His wife wakes up, and she says, "What's going on with you?" And he can't explain it. He doesn't know how to articulate what went on, but he can't fall asleep again. And the next day he wakes up, goes to work. But the story, he can't get over this. What do I do with the last minute of my life? And his mom is distressed out of his box. And weeks go on. He can't express what's happening. He can't explain it to his wife. This is the biggest problem in life, when you have things going on in your mind that you don't know how to articulate, and it's there, but it's not there. And it's taking up space in your brain, but you can't get it out of your system, and you don't know how to actualize it, and he's in a mess. One of his friends was a frum guy, religious Baal Tshuva, and he says, "Look, there's this rabbi, I want you to go. Talk to him, go to his shir." He wasn't religious. The guy said, "Go to the shir, maybe you'll learn something new." So he goes. He goes into the shir, and the guy's talking there. It was a Breslav, and this guy's talking, and he wasn't interested in the whole shir, and he's listening, nothing is talking to him, so he picks himself up, he's about to leave. And as he's about to leave, this rabbi who was talking turns to him and he says, "Techake rega, wait! I want to ask you a question. If you would have 1 hour in your life left to live, what would you do with that hour?" And he says, "You tell me what you would do if you would have 1 hour left." Big talker. You know what the guy said? He said, "If I would have 1 hour of my life left to live, you know what I would do? Wherever I would be, I would stop. And I would say, thank you Hashem. Thank you Hashem for every breath I took. Thank you Hashem for every flower that I've ever seen. Thank you Hashem for every tear that I've cried. Thank you Hashem for every difficulty I went through in my life. Thank you Hashem for all the pain that I went through. Thank you Hashem for all the opportunities, for all the blessings. Thank you Hashem." He said, "Maybe I'll call my wife and I would thank her for being in my life. I would call my father, I would call my mother if I could. If I can't, then I would just go on thanking. And I would appreciate every last minute of my life. And then I would die a peaceful man." And this guy said, "Wow. Teach me the teachings that are making you think that way." And of course, he became a Baal Tshuva. That's usually how the stories end. But the message that is reverberating is, do you know how valuable it is to know that you have 3 days left to live? Do you know how valuable it is to know that you'll have an hour left to live? It's much better to know that the pisaron of your dream is that you're going to die in 3 days than to walk around with a nightmare. It's not a nightmare once you have clarity and you know what's going to happen. And that's a tremendous message when it comes to being a friend. There was a clip that was going around from Rabbi Besser, Israel Besser. And it was a story from Psulcha Vision Tzir, from today's Vision Tzir Rebbe. And the message of the story was, the punchline was that the Psulcha one time told his Gabba that he wants to go visit somebody 1:30 in the morning. He said this Yid made chasana, his wife was nifted, he wants to go 1:30 in the morning. He went over with his Gabba to visit the Yid. And the guy opens up the door and he's like shocked. Vision Tzir Rebbe standing over there, and he asks him, Vayeishev Rebbe asks him, could you make me a tea? Versteht sich, he makes him a tea, he sits down. And he has this conversation with him where he asks him about the chasana. Who did come, who didn't come, who was Masad Kedushin, who got the brachas, who did you expect should come, that didn't come. A whole story. About the music, the caterer, was he happy, was he not happy? And after 44 minutes, the Shmuzing, he picked himself up and he left. And the Gabba asked him, like, why did you have to come 1:30? You know, like, if you want to go to this guy's chasana, go to the chasana, why do you have to go 1:30? So he said, a gewaldig insight. He said, you know, after a simcha, you come home at night. What do you want? What do? You talk to your wife. You discuss who did come and who didn't come. Who did you expect should come? Who showed up? Who came longer? How was the catering? Was the music good? Wasn't the music good? And that's what you do. You just go, you rehash it and you relive it and you retell the story of a chasna. But this Yid, his wife was nifted. He's marrying off his youngest child. He doesn't have who to share it with. So I came that he should have who to share it with. It's this point. It's this nakuda where Yosef asks, Loma ponecha zayafim, dage belevish yisichenu. You want to be a friend? Be there in their emotional experiences. Relive their emotional experiences together with them. Chiro Adalami was a real friend. You know why? Because he was able to feel what Yehuda was going through, and he was able to take that experience upon himself. When you start living in this, way, it becomes a very, very emotional. The whole parasha becomes full of emotions. The Chassidic master said, "V'yimse'eu ish v'hinei soya basoda." We said before. He asked him, "Ma tevakesh? What do you want?" You know what Yosef HaTzadik said? He said, "As achai anochi mevakesh." I'm searching for someone to be my brother. Hagidu no li eifu heimiroyim. Show me. Eifu heimiroyim means show me where they're pasturing. Show me where they're being shepherds. But if you tweak the words, it's Hagidu no li eifu heimiroyim. Show me where there's friends. Yosef went. You can imagine yourself being in the situation where you're abandoned. But you don't realize that the reason why you were abandoned was because you had bad communication skills. So you end up in a situation, and then you beg somebody, you say, Hagidu no li eifu heimiroyim. Show me where there's friendship. Show me friendship. Teach me how to be a friend. And then Yosef gets his prayers answered, if that was a prayer. He ends up going into situations that he never wanted to be. But he learns how to be a friend. He learns how to connect. He learns how to see panecha zoyafim, panecha royim. He learns how to be upfront. He knows how to get people out of their rut, to get them out of their place of entanglement, that they should free themselves from baggage. When his brothers eventually are going to come, he knows how to bring them to a place of tshuva. He knows how to connect to the common man. He becomes a Pele Yoyetz. He becomes somebody who knows how to interpret dreams. Paroi next week is going to ask him to interpret his dreams. He becomes somebody who can take apart the dark, mysticized parts of life and unmystify it, demystify it, bring clarity to life. So when we go back into this parasha and we say, so what is the parasha teaching me? Everything that I need to know. It's teaching me what it means to be a friend. It's teaching me how to be a friend. It's teaching me how to be emotionally open, how to be emotionally vulnerable, and how to live the good life today.